Hello everyone, my name is Ryan, and I was asked to make a tutorial about how I decorate in Hogwarts Legacy in the Room of Requirement, and I'll show some of the Vivariums as well. I haven't completely finished all my characters or all the rooms or Vivariums, um, mostly because I'm playing other games and also it's actually quite difficult to decorate in Hogwarts Legacy in the rooms in Vivarium because one of the things I try not to do is I try not to repeat the same designs or patterns, or also I try not to repeat the same decorations um, and placements, etc. I try to do different things for like each character and each room and each Vivarium. Um, I do typically will like, as you can see in some of the videos, I do use a specific themes for some. I find that the what I call the garden vivarium, this one, the some of the decorations such as the castle walls and the big trees, etc., really fit this vivarium specifically, and it's a lot easier to make hedge mazes and things like that, but I will go over that when I get into that. So let's start from the very beginning on how I do this stuff. So for this character and this room specifically, because my character is a Hufflepuff, I went with the default setting for Hufflepuff because Hogwarts Legacy, the rooms of requirement, have a specific design for each house. So scientific is for Ravenclaw, botanical is for Hufflepuff, eclectic is for Gryffindor, and gothic is clearly for Slytherin. Now, some of the decorations, as you can see, will have like that scientific, botanical, eclectic, and gothic. Now, for some reason, I think the developers got Gothic and Eclectic mixed on some of the decorations. For example, the clocks. Clearly, that is for Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and this is Gryffindor. Because the Gryffindor house is more castle gothic based, not like dark, like dark gothic or like evil Death Eater gothic, but just the basic castle gothic style. I will use this clock for Gryffindor, and I will use this one for Slytherin, even if I'm using the gothic walls, flooring, ceiling, etc. I will use this clock in the gothic setting because it has snakes on it. And why would they put, you know, the snakes on a Gryffindor clock when there's no indication on this clock that it would be for a Slytherin? So I think they got the color or I think this was supposed to be for the Gothic and this was supposed to be for Eclectic, but since it has a Gothic design, they just whatever. I'm mumbling, so forgive me on that one. But you kind of get what I'm talking about. If you don't, I apologize. I'm not really good at explaining things. But anyway, and just to go over some of the other decorations, some of these can be used in different houses. This one is definitely clearly for Ravenclaw. Um, this one, you can use in either. You can really use them all in whatever you'd like, but I typically will use this one for Ravenclaws. I will use this one for Gryffindor and Slytherin, and I will use this one for Hufflepuff. And sometimes Slytherin too, because like the swirls on the legs kind of give like a snake-like quality, and also the swirls can be equated to like botanical because of like it's looks like a vine, So it just really depends, but you can literally use these like for anything. Now when it comes to The statues, or I mean, the suits of armor, it really just depends on your own taste. I typically use this one for Slytherin or any wizard or witch that I deem as like a dark wizard or a dark witch. And I will typically use this in more like good witch, good wizard, or like um, mostly with Ravenclaw or Gryffindor, as you can see in some of my other decorating videos. Um, I've noticed that because there's only very few decorating items to begin with, I will typically just start using these and just changing the colors to match the house if you want to like match everything. Now, for this room specifically, I didn't change the color aesthetics. I left it since this is the very first character I created for the game when it originally released. I just left the default setting because when you make it yellow, it can. I figured since there was going to be a lot more yellow decorating items already by default, that it would just be too much yellow in the beginning. I do have a second Hufflepuff character that I'm going to work on in the future, and I am going to turn all of this to yellow because I have future plans for different characters and aesthetics and colors and whatnot. But I don't want to reveal any of that yet because I like surprising people and making surprises. By the way, anybody who's watching this who's subscribed and has liked my videos and shared or whatever, thank you so much. Like this is literally just being done for fun. I'm not trying to like become a great YouTube succession or star or whatever. I'm literally just doing this for fun because it's literally a lot of fun. And I also like watching other people's decorating videos. Some people have really good ideas. I don't copy anybody else's stuff. I try to do everything from my own creativity or whatever. But I will take like inspirations. I don't try to copy anybody. So anyway, let's get back to this. So some of the, as you can see, some of the things I will change the color for some of the furniture, like the globes and whatever, just to give it more matching qualities to um, the other sets of furniture. I also made like a little desk space for Deke, because you can change the size and everything. When it comes to putting things on the walls, though, I try to put things in a more symmetrical style, or a more like or organized, orderly fashion that not only fits the wall frame itself, because each each um each wall has its own frame, as you can see, and depending on like which one you pick can definitely change the outlook of um how you use the pictures and everything. See the vine that's going through here. I try not to put anything on things like that because I use things like that as the frame for like a space on a wall, you know. So that's what I try to do. Um by the way, I'm also not really good at tutorializing, so like please forgive me, and if you want like a better quality video or whatever, just leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. So like for here an example, I use the wall dividers not just to kind of like separate this space and give it a little more privacy, because my idea is like, okay, if my character could like change clothes, etc., like he needs a little bit of a privacy space so that he can do it. I know it's kind of like redundant considering there's spaces here and there's also that and blah blah blah. But like it's not going to be 100% perfect. But I also just kind of wanted to make it look like a workspace. And again, using the wall that's already there, I try to use that when I'm decorating because it's like, okay, since this has got drawers and shelves, etc., I try to be a little bit realistic with it. It's like, okay, well, I need to be able to get into the space so my character can pull stuff out from the drawers, grab the pots, etc. Um, have some of the other decorations here to use for like designing his clothes, some candles, etc. I didn't put a mirror in here because like there just wasn't enough space for a mirror. Um, and then, have like a centerpiece in the, so like when you walk in like that, you have something to look at. Now, I've seen other people put like decorations here, and I've even done that too, where it's like you have a centerpiece and then you put like couches, candles, etc. So it really just depends on what you do. If you want to put like couches, as you can see in some of my other videos, you can just like I try to give like a good space in between, just to make sure that you have enough walking space. So like probably, try to like do it center here. And then if you want to add like a little table, you just take, since we're doing the botanical theme, keep it the same thing. And you just like see how it'll do that. It'll, clip to the nearest like, piece. And if you hold L2, then you can move it freely. So judging by my own eyesight and whatnot, I try to give it like a good like center field, because you want your character to be able to walk in between. Because some of these furnitures you can literally just like walk on. So you don't want it too close to the couch, otherwise you'll just be walking on top of the table all the time. Because like you'll be doing that and everything. And then you can put a rug underneath it. Um, since the round one won't work, because like I mean, you could use this one at its default size. You could also make it bigger. It just depends on what you're going for, which that actually looks really nice. I'm not gonna do it for this character, but definitely something that I could potentially use in the future. But I typically like to stick with just having the basic one that goes underneath it if the table fits on top of it. And the table, or just like leave it at its default size. You could also make it bigger, but it's a little too big. So I try to keep it like the rugs at either their default setting, or I make them smaller to make them more appealing. Um, but it really just depends on what you want to do for your character, like this is the normal size, and since this is a little bit bigger, this would probably work better, so that way when you put it down, it's probably not quite centered, but when you put it down, your character has something nice to walk on. Oh, see, clips. So you could do something like that. So yeah, that's like when putting like couches down. I typically will try to put like rugs underneath certain furnitures and stuff if I can. Sometimes when they're too close to the wall, you can't, and also when you have like a rug like that that's normal size, you can't put one down because of that. And then, you can't put it up against the wall like that, so it won't stick. And then, of course, it's like, it's way too small to use. So some furniture you won't be able to put rugs on depending on where you put them. And also, when you put down rugs, if you put down the rug first, the item or the furniture piece will literally clip into the center like that. So it helps you actually decorate even better. Um, the hard part is literally just making sure that the rug itself is like centered. So I try to use everything in the room itself to center things. I use like the center of that wall to center these things. I will use like this beam right here to center things. Or if I'm putting things to the side of the center, I will use the center within another frame like here, to create a center space. It's not quite centered because I didn't want it too close to the wall so that I could have pictures here. Because you don't want to entirely cover up your pictures necessarily. You want to have at least a little space in between. And also because you see that little curved vine right there, you don't want to put anything on it. Because you don't want to cover up the existing textures of the walls and stuff to like, because it adds to it as well. It adds to the whole atmosphere and everything. And when you're using the botanical one, you can put pictures behind the vines, just don't put anything if you want to see like the faces and stuff. That's why I use like the blank ones and or whatnot. But it really just depends on what you want to do. Like, you can do that. Like I have some of the pictures behind the vines, but I don't put any like right there because you won't necessarily like, see it like that. That's why I put them off to the other side. Um, and going on to these walls up here. Now, there is a weird, I don't know if it's a glitch or just a programming
Deke
error or
thinks you
something.
should be proud of all the
Um,
potions you've brewed.
Thank you, Deke, I am. Um, there's a
Deke thinks you've
spot.
made
Oh my
marvelous
God.
improvements here.
Thank you. Um, there's a spot around right here where it won't let you put anything. So the area is extremely like tight to put things. Like when you start decorating, you'll notice it yourself. So like up here, for example, regarding like putting down furniture pieces and stuff, you want to make sure that you have like a good enough walking space right here because some of these things are like extremely bulky and whatnot. And again, depending on what theme of the room you use, you can use it to your advantage with like putting furniture pieces or other decorating items up here. Like for example, for the eclectic, because it has such a good light coming from it, I will typically put like a statue or a suit of armor or one of the like table decorations or something up. But because I'm using the botanical and it has like the pots and the basket and yeah, the box and the all this stuff on it, I thought it would be a good idea to put this table here so that way you can like he's working on his gardening and he can turn around, grab stuff from here, move it back there. Same thing for right here. um because this has so much stuff on it, just same thing here, gardening, gardening, gardening. um and for like this spot right here, I typically try to have something of like a centerpiece or like, to really like, use this space for like viewing purposes. So like, using the frog thing here. There's other characters where I've put like their desk here or like a table here or a couch here or something. Just something to like, really where you can just get the visual of the room because I'm big on like rooms with a view and balconies with a view. And you can also like make little intricate designs down there like using the bookshelves or something to create like a circle or a square or a like semi hexagon or something with like wall dividers or couches or whatever. Just be mindful of the space because it is very limited, and you could make like it using small furniture, small bookshelves, etc. Um, and again, like each wall that you can hang things on is its own little like think of it like a poster, so you can create your own how you want it to look. And again, I try to keep things like symmetrical or like within the same theme. So I'll like use the same types of pictures that like talk about the same things. For example, like, that's like a castle design, that's a design, that's like a picture of a tree and everything. So that's a picture of a tree. Um, Same thing over here. It's like, you have like the horizontal painting, two verticals, and then two of the mini horizontal ones, so that you can do the same thing over here. And I just switch sides it on so it kind of like mirrors each other a little bit. So like, how that one mirrors, that one over there, and how this mirror matches that mirror. Like, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You do whatever you want with your room. Like, it's all about you. Or what you think your character would like. Because I base the designs of the rooms off of like my character's personality that in my head that I give them. Like this character is like, kind-hearted. He's a Hufflepuff, good-natured, all the Hufflepuff qualities. And he also likes things to be neat and orderly. He likes design. He likes spaces being filled for the most part. He likes good walking space. He likes a view. So that's why I don't block off sections like this. Like, normally you would want to have something, this kind of thing blocked off to give it a little more privacy, which I do have for this side, that I mentioned earlier. And I have it for this one as like a little sitting area. Um, so like, you can enjoy the peace and quiet, read a book, talk to a friend, etc., which I know you can't have anybody in here along with you, but it's the idea of it all. So then in the back, I mean, you can put stuff up here. Like I put like a little table, little chairs here. Um, you'll see with other characters in the future, or if you go look at my other videos, I put different things here, just to kind of convey like a different message, or just different designs. Using the flower pots, the mirrors. Since this is my first character and the first time I played the game, I tried to use everything that I could, because I wanted to see what works and what doesn't, what goes with what, etc. Funny thing enough, for some reason, I don't know if it's a glitch, but it really worked out in my favor. Uh, this is normally silver or metal looking, but when I put it on here, it gave it this like kind of like copperized look to it, which I think goes really well with the whole garden aesthetic. Because that was my idea for this character, and which is why I'm glad they have this, is that it's called botanical because, like I equate Hufflepuffs with gardening because they're the earth element. So I tried to make everything look as earthy and as gardeny as possible, especially down here where you can see I put the wallflowers up. And to do this, like you just have to use you just use the snapping mechanic. So like it'll tip sometimes like when you hang stuff up from across each other, like you can get it to like snap with other stuff across the wall, I think. I want to say you can. I haven't hung anything up on these walls with other characters in a long time, so I'm kind of forgetting if you can or not, but I think you can. Um, and I try to use like the first piece, like if it's above everything or if it's high, I try to center that as much as I can, which this one's a little bit off center, but that's okay. Um, gives a character. But like you use it to then, center your other wall decorations so that, if you're going for that asymmetry look, or not asymmetry, that symmetrical look. So then in here, I wanted it to give like a very open space and garden quality. And again, because this is my first character, I wanted to use as much as I could in terms of the decorations. Um, with like future characters, I will only use like one of these big statues, depending on what house it is. So, for example, I equate the hippogriff with a Hufflepuff. I equate um, the unicorn with Ravenclaw, and the Thestral with Slytherin, and the Graphorn with Gryffindor. And what you can see here is like, I would use the um, other statue as a centerpiece, and I would try to center it on the icon on the floor as best as I could, and so that I can use it as a way to like, put things around it to give it this like, back base and everything, just to give it a little more like kind of gardeny design. And again, once again, like using the wall as part of the decorating itself, like since there's a space there, that's my dryer, sorry. Since there's a space there, but there's not a space here, you don't want to put anything in front of this because then it covers up the flowers so that, you can't see it. I mean, if you want to, you can. This is literally for people who don't want to do things like that. Oh, excuse me. So with the mirrors here, this shape of mirror is definitely Hufflepuff oriented. Why? Because you can see that it fits perfectly within the botanical wall design because of this, like, oval shape. And I thought it fit the mirror perfectly. But again, you can use any mirror you want. Like this is the like really, you can use whatever style you want. I'm just saying for like me personally, I equate the botanical one to Hufflepuff. But I will be doing like a Slytherin botanical, a Ravenclaw botanical, and a Gryffindor botanical in the future. Like I'm gonna do different characters with different styles and themes and stuff. But going again back to like decorating, when it comes to the plant stuff, or I I try to like use as much of them as I can in a space, since you get at least yeah, you can get 7 available. So I tried in this room in particular to give it a real big like garden quality. And it really just depends on what you want to do in this space. So like this space is definitely for, garden, as I keep saying, gardening. So I put in more of the gardening tables, um, and filled it up as much as I could. And again, I apologize if this is like not helping that much. Again, this is like my first time making a kind of tutorial video because somebody asked, and again, I'm literally just doing this for fun. So, and I think I had somebody ask me like, how long does this take to do? And it's like, it can, well, I'll show you it. Well, it's gonna like 100 and something hours, but this is the first character I played with. So it's going to, you know, but typically with my newer characters, I can complete the game within like 40 or so, like 40 to 60 hours. And then when it comes to like designing the room, depending on how good my pistons are firing, my creativity is sparking, etc. It could take me like 30 hours or less to design a room. It just depends. I don't really have like a good time or average. It'll take as long as however you want it to take. Um, because I try to do as much detail as possible. So for here, I like to use the windows as part of like the decorating scheme. So, with like depending on how the light is, what like light source you want to use, like if you want to do the mysterious atmosphere, or the midnight one, the warm and cozy, or the natural and earthy, because those are specific to the houses too. So obviously the mysterious one is for Slytherin, the warm and cozy is for Gryffindor, the natural and earthy is for Hufflepuff, and the midnight one is for Ravenclaw. So like each of the not each, but like m- some of the decorations and some of the styles, as I mentioned previously, they are house oriented, or specifically for some of the house, or for the houses. Um, but again, because you can change the colors and everything, like you can literally make a botanical Slytherin, a eclectic Hufflepuff, a scientific Gryffindor, or a gothic Ravenclaw, or, what it did, or whatever you want. Um, so yeah, like just use furniture to like cover spaces. Because I don't have like any major bookshelf patterns in here or whatever, this isn't a good example to describe things like that. But for example, when it see like right here, you can't run through this. So just be mindful of like how you position your couches and chairs and whatnot. um But, yeah, here, like, you can put stuff behind the couches to give it more of, like, what you could typically see in, like, real life. I try to base some of the designs of, like, or furniture placements, like, on what it would look like in real life. Because I like a little bit of realism when it comes to fantasy. Not entirely, but just a little bit. Like, and just think about things like, what I would see like a table between the armchair and the couch so you can put your drinks or your books or, whatever, so you don't have to constantly reach out to the center table, because the center table is literally just there to, well, to place things, but it's also there to like just make it a centerpiece so you have a little bit of symmetry and something to work off of, something to like base your distance and, things like that. And then, if you want to change the lighting, you just add some candelabras or candle stands, etc. It's hard. I don't know. I'm sure you can't really tell or whatever. I don't know. But like, I put a statue here again, close to the center of um, the thing on the floor, which the stand itself isn't quite centered, but because um, the item itself has a bigger, like, I guess you could call it a hit box or placement box or whatever. Um, it's not going to be quite center, because if you move certain statues to the center that have longer, um, like the phoenix or the I can't remember the other bird's name. It'll push like things like this further out, like here. So just be mindful of things like that. But again, it just depends on what you want to do. And I try to keep some of the wall decorations themed too with what I place in certain sections of the room. Like, for example, here with this being the potion section, I try to make it look more potiony. So, like, having that picture there, that, hell, what do you call it? I don't know. That there, I can't think of the name, the little, like, the potion shelf with the pot. I mean, the cauldron and the spoons and shit, and while also adding the flower thing to keep it, in themed with the botanical. Um, and put some statue or some suits of armor here just to like give it a more castle, and kind of like just to remind it that we're in a castle. Um, and again, and because I try to use every bit of the decorations that are that are in the game, if I can. Will try not to, again, use certain ones that go with certain houses, but honestly it just really depends on what you want to do. So with that being said, let's go to the vivarium, and we're going to go into the garden one first, and I'll show you what I do there. And I think I already have a video of this up. And I am going to go off and say, like, this is my favorite vivarium. The second one being the beach, the third one being the swamp, and the last one being the mountain view. Um, I've actually found that the mountain one is the hardest to, like, come up with, like, an idea for. Because, like, every time I think about it, I just start drawing blanks. Um, you'll notice that I've named some of my animals. And when you put so much decorations into a spot, it's going to take it a second for it to load. So as soon as this is done loading, I will go through it and, um, talk about. Well, I guess I could go ahead. It's probably going to take a minute for it all to load. So, going through the list of like all the floorings and stuff. Again, this is all depending on what you want to do yourself. I like the cobblestone a lot, especially in this area, because it's already got like, some of the greenery and everything in it, and it just gives it that really good like garden quality. Um, so hi Kevin, I don't have any food right now. Y'all's food is literally over there. It's right there. I also like mazes. I'm not going to do it for every character, but a lot of characters I will do it for because I like having different directions to go. It gives it more variety and you can do a lot more when you have like a maze-like quality walking area. So anyway, so I try to use the walls, like these little walls or like the other castle walls or the fences or whatever to create like sort of a path and just to like give an idea of like what your space will be. Um, like when you are doing like when you have like spaces in between them, you just put like flowers or um like the little like a tree or one of the fire things or you just use something to put in the spaces. You won't be able to cover all the spaces like it's going to be obvious because you can't warp the item itself. So you can't really block all the spaces, but some of them you can do by moving it to give an example like that, or I tend to do it like by the corner, like that. The cat's making a move like that. Because sometimes when you do it like up against the like piece itself like that, you can limit your distance or limit your space on what you can put in between because some of them just won't fit. So I typically tend to leave it where it's like corner to corner. It gives me more space to put stuff. And just shrinking the bigger trees, enlarging the smaller trees, or making the trees like this larger or whatever to give it a more grandiose space. Um, as you can see, it's like still loading in some spots. Um, but yeah, and then just like using the plants and the flowers to like create the edges, put stuff in the space, whatever you want to do. You can put all the floor or the you can put these floorings underneath items, but you can't do these under like the house or other stuff because these are seen as like their own individual items, see? So you have to have like the space for it. But with these ones, you can literally put it anywhere. So I also try to like make a path behind the house if that's what I'm gonna do. Put stuff behind it for like a view. Sometimes you're gonna have space because you can't fit anything in it. Um, depending on how close to the area's edge you get. And again, like just putting up more trees, more path, more, you know, just something I would like to see in real life or something I have seen in real life. I use that as like inspiration and stuff and try to like close gaps with certain items like, the bench and how the hell did they get in there? Um, just like put stuff to like, um, just make things prettier, more colorful. Because again, this is supposed to be a garden, so I wanted to give it a really good garden aesthetic. Um, I like using sometimes I'll just use like some of the castle pieces. I like making a little pumpkin patch garden because I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, if I have the house and the animals, I want like a little pumpkin garden, that I can harvest my pumpkins, etc. I also use the fountain pieces or like the other pieces. Um, Let me get to them. Yeah, like the hippogriff, the unicorn, the standing stone, or twisted statue. I like to use those as centerpieces to give me like an idea because what I will typically put up first is the centerpiece and the house. So that gives me like an idea of like, okay, how do I want the path to look? Where can I put stuff? What do I want the design to be? How symmetrical do I want things? Do I want to do it like asymmetrical, etc.? Like that's typically what I think about. Cause see how like, the columns here and here, it makes it look like, kind of symmetrical and stuff. And again, this is my first character and this was the first time I was designing stuff. So it's not going to look like, the best. Um, cause like I was still figuring how to do everything, how like making more paths and, adding more like little garden nooks or spaces or whatever and put certain things in. And I also like the idea of like having a bench to sit on, and so I like try to use the background itself as like something to look at, etc. Um, yeah, and then I love the little like it's not necessarily a gazebo, but that's kind of what I think of it. Using like I thought it would be kind of neat to just have like a little bit of the hedges here instead of entirely using castle walls. Again, to give it that more gardeny feel. And then, you want to use like how the light comes in. So it's like, where do you want to put stuff? Because this stuff does cause shadows. And sometimes some of the stuff is going to glitch in and out. Um, So it's literally just using your environment, like using the sun, the space, like what you want the view to be, like what parts of the scenery do you want to exaggerate with, like, like how I put here to make this exaggerated. So it's like, oh, look at that view. Since you can't literally sit on the bench, it's all about like the idea, like if I could, how would I want it to look? Some of these, like this tree, kind of looks a little bit out of place. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and remove it. I don't like it like that. Um, yeah, it just really depends on like what you want it to look like. And the one thing I've had the hardest time doing, actually, it's not in this one. It was for my Gryffindor male character, is actually building a castle. Excuse me. I haven't quite figured out, like I've watched other people do it like on PC with modding and everything, and I don't, this is not a PC, so I can't mod. But I do have a PC copy, and in the future I will be using mods so I can actually do more intricate stuff. But the hardest one I've found is like to create a castle, because like the pieces it provides is not the greatest, because there's no actual like floor platform to use. And like because you'll have to climb on some of them, etc. And it's just so I'm having a hard time trying to come up with like a castle, but I am going to do one. For the swamp one, it's the same idea. It's literally all about using the lighting in the space. So like, how do you want it to look? And since it's the swamp and it's at night, I was like, I want something a little spooky ooky. So it's like putting up a lot of trees. And I also was thinking like, okay, well, this is gonna be like, if this is where the animals are, I kind of want to make it look like a big old like organized like pen. So I try to keep the centerpieces, so like when you warp in, that's like the first thing you see is the centerpiece. So it's like, okay, I just got to go straight, and then you come, and then it's like, oh, go left, go right. So it's like, if somebody wants to explore, they have like different paths they can go down, and like, made this path for like the deck. And because like there's also in this area there's open areas you can explore. So it's like, make an entrance to go through here, add the trees for some ambience and some atmosphere, and make it look a little spooky. um and because it's dark, you want to use like the little lanterns or the fires or whatever you want to do, or you could just leave it dark, which I'm going to be doing with future characters too. Some of them I'm going to have lit, some of them I'm going to have dark. It just depends on what atmosphere and mood you want to go for. And just the spacing with like the trees and everything, just make sure whatever you're trying to do, you just have enough space for it. And once again, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope this is helpful to anybody, and I apologize if this was not helpful enough. Again, it's my first time making a tutorial, and I'm not really good at explaining things. I'm better at doing things than explaining things. But again, like, just have openings for like the little pathways that you can take and stuff, because the idea is like, you don't want to block any pathway. You want to use the environment itself to like add to it. Again, putting up some trees and stuff, like just, give it that like spooky ooky ambience and atmosphere and stuff. Yeah. Oh, the house didn't pop up. Sometimes when the animals are like, because the animals load in first, and when they are like in a area that has something like the house won't pop up until they move. So let me see. Who is that one? Jenny. All right, Jenny, come over here. You're making the house not pop up. See? Yeah, so like there's the house, and the houses the windows will glow. When you put the houses in here, all the windows glow. Side note, Avalanche, if you're watching this, please, in Hogwarts Legacy 2, make it to where you can actually go in the houses so we can decorate some more. I was kind of hoping with the update that you guys gave, that we would get more decorating items. Sadly, we didn't. So in Hogwarts Legacy 2, please, 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 more decorating items, because this is actually a lot of fun to do. You ain't got to go full Sims level, but like, a little more decorating items would be nice. Put a little like, nook here for like their food. You can see for yourself like what I did. It's just literally like, spacing things out, how you want things to look, etc. Make little pathways and entrances and exits and stuff. I haven't done the mountain one with this character yet, because again, that one is like the hardest I found to do something. But I am gonna do it. I just haven't had any ideas yet. Because like it's very difficult. So with the beach one, at least with this character, I did want to try to do something castle-like. So I made like essentially a maze, with a few trees and stuff. It's not entirely realistic because like literally this would not be this close to the shoreline or on the beach or whatever. So like it's not realistic, but it's the Wizarding World. It's not real. But again, just having like, the entrance being grand, a centerpiece, multiple directions to take, go right, left. So we'll go right, have a centerpiece here, something behind it, lots of benches, the castle walls, the fire stands, or whatever they're called. I'm sure somebody's going to have the proper name for them. But yeah, just like, making little areas, little nooks, little crannies, stuff, little dead ends that, because the idea was like, oh, okay, well, if I wanted to sit right here and just enjoy the quiet, no view, just be in a dark little corner, or, be here in the light, see more stuff. Here, you have like the tent, little fire thing, to like cover the the gaps in the walls, because they do create big ass gaps. Just use the columns and place the columns, not the columns, oops, the walls against the columns. Where's the wall? Where's the wall? Where's the wall? That's a low wall. Where's the high wall? Okay. So, like, depending on where you place the column originally, if you start with the column first, you want to put it, like, in the center or, like, on the corner. But when you do with the wall first, like, for example, hi, like, say you put a wall there, you want to do it in the corner, and then you want to flip it so it doesn't look exactly the same. And then you go back. You can either do the tall one or the short one. With these ones, it's good because the short ones are the same height as the wall. So you literally just put it in the corner like that, and then flip it so it doesn't look the same. And then there you go. You have a little like that. So it hides the gaps in between the walls better. And then, you have a little bit of a walking space. And how to create that, what I will do is I will put a wall here, right? And then I will put another wall here when he gets out of the way. Put a wall there, and then just delete. Delete that. So then you have, like, the actual measurement of, like, what you need to do and blah, blah, blah. So that way you have, like, the walking space you need and everything. So it gives you a good idea. So like use like, put down multiple items to like measure stuff. So like in some characters, like like doing the beach or the garden or whatever. Like let's say if I'm putting like a wall or like a barrier, like a barrier around this, what I would do is I will take a wall, not the wall. I will take the stone fence, and depending on the size of the centerpiece, it's like I'll try to do it like either the center first, right? And I'll shrink it because if you do it too big, it covers part of it. So you want to shrink it, put it in the center, and then just go around. So like for example, you just put that there, put it there, and put it there. And let's see how. Okay, so it's kind of hard to tell. But you see how the wall on the left side right there extends further out the um from the object. That's okay. Like it's okay to do that. Because it's not going to be completely symmetrical. It's actually quite difficult to get it to be symmetrical because you would have to place multiple walls here. You have to put 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 6, depending on how big you want it. I will typically do like 1, 2, 3, 4. But just remember, when you do that, you also extend this side too. So it's going to be a little bit bigger. So it's like, let's try it. So it's like, we'll leave that one there for reference, right? So if I'm basing it off the center, whoops, I did it again. So I want to have a better distance from that. So it's like 1. Actually, you know what? 2's a good distance. 2's a good distance. So it's like, you do 1 there. And you do 1 there. And then you want to, like, remove that one. And the ones you place down, you don't have, you can just use. But since I have the pillar there. So it's like, I will try to get, like I mentioned earlier in the garden about getting the corners to match, or like the corners to connect like that. And when you do, you just put in like, either a pillar or a flower or, something to cover the gap. And again, it's not going to be perfect. But you'll see in like other character videos I've done. He's standing in the way of the wall. Yeah, see? There's a wall here. And he's standing in it. And just like made other little like nooks and stuff for, just depending on the size. I put in the animals last, by the way. Don't put the animals in first. Take the animals out before you put any of them in there, so that because they will follow you. They will walk all over the place. It will make it more frustrating to put stuff down. See how the wall's there. and then I just do like little dead ends, little surprises, little try to like, make it fun because you want to explore it yourself. So it's like, and also when I had the idea of like making videos, I was like, well, I want to create stuff that, gives people something to look at because I'm a very visual person. Um, I got about 5 minutes left. I know it's a lot to go over. And I'm not going to have time to show you the other ones or the other characters. But generally speaking, just um, just go with what you want to do. Just like cover gaps. You know, use the items to measure. Um, you know, just have like if you have a theme or something you want to go with, use the environment. Um, make something that you would like to explore, that you would like to see. Something that captures your imagination, something that would make you go, "Oh, wow, like this is so cool." Do something that you like. Don't worry about what other people like because everybody's got different tastes. That's what makes all of us great. We all do things differently. Um, I don't care how woke that sounds. But yeah, just do things that you like. Um, you know, like see here, I use like the flowers to cover the gaps in between the pillars so it doesn't look so barren and so empty. It gives it life, color, etc. You have like the centerpiece right here and on the other side, so like you know where the center is and where to go. And then, I have like a little entrance here for the grap horn pin. Because, like, if you want to create a pin for your animals, you can. Oh, damn it. Trying to summon them, so go ahead and give them a good brush. They're so cute! Oh, and my favorite magical beast, probably, honestly, I love them all, but I would probably have to say the Niffler. The Niffler he's just too goddamn cute. But yeah, you can make a pin, um, and, make sure their food's accessible. Where's the Graphorn one? I mean, you can use the basketball, which I'm probably overlooking it. Ah, there we go. I can't. Okay, like on a small little rant, I do not understand why people think this game is so mid or just like, it's okay. Is it the greatest thing since sliced bread? No, but like, no game is. Literally. Like, but this game is awesome. Like, they put so much detail into this. Did they do everything that they wanted to do? No. But, that's the whole joy of video game development. You don't always get to do everything you wanted to do because of limitations, time, etc., technology, capability, etc. But like, look at what they were able to do, man. Like, you can't. This game is not mid, and I'm sorry, but this should have won Game of the Year in 2023. Like, it should have. You can fight me on that. I don't care. I will defend that just like I will defend that Batman and Robin and Batman Forever are great Batman films because they're great comic book films. But anyway, that's a whole different story for another time. If I'm sorry I'm not able to show more because I only have like an hour to do for this. But if anybody would like another tutorial about my other characters and stuff, let me know in the comments and I will see what I can do. And I'm just going to take a second just to say thank you so much for watching if you stuck around this long. I appreciate it. Let's keep it respectful in the comments though. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time reading, your mom's gay or, stupid shit. Like I don't have time for that. Um, if you're gonna say something, either ask an actual, question about the game or like how to decorate or whatever, or, if you want me to do another one, blah blah blah. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you